think about what it means for us as Christians as well. Additive and extractive.
Yeah, so the way Cal sets this up, he's riffing on another article about this lady who bought a rotary style phone with a big long cable, and she gave that to her son.
Her son, was it?
Yeah, and so he has been using this most afternoons to talk to his grandma. And,
wow. Okay.
And so the fact that they're what does he say? There's no scrolling, no distractions, no comparisons, no dopamine hits to chase. Instead, he just listens to stories, asks questions, and has the comfort of knowing someone who loves him is listening on the other end of the line. And so the technology, I mean, it's a technology. Phones are a technology. Wall handsets, rotary phones are a particular technology of a particular time. And so Cal talks about this as being an additive technology. Its goal is to take something you value, like talking to people you know, and make this activity easier and more accessible. And so there's additive technologies are ones that actually help you achieve the things that you want to achieve. In comparison, he talks about Instagram and other social media technologies as extractive technologies. That is, they actually take more from you than you actually want to perceive. And so he says the value proposition in social media is suddenly muddled. You might enjoy aspects of the app, the occasional diversion, the rare update from a cherished friend, but with these joys comes endless sorrows as well. The scrolling can become worryingly addictive, while the content tends to devolve into a digital slurry, equal parts mind-numbing and anxiety-inducing. And so there's so much on these apps that are actually extractive from you, taking from you, not adding to you. Yeah. And so that's the problem there.
Deforming, that Crouch and Kim would talk about.
Right, yeah. So they're deforming you, yes. And another thing I was either listening to or reading this week, I can't remember, but it was talking about Mark Zuckerberg's, I don't know how recent it was, but a Senate hearing that he was part of.
Yes.
And he said on there that about 30% of what you see on your Facebook feed is from your friends and accounts you follow. The rest is stuff that they are pushing on you. And I've certainly noticed that recently, and to the fact that I barely go on Facebook now, because there's just, I can see 3 ads for every post from someone who I actually am interested in. It's not worth my time. So the only, I guess, social media that I really are a part of at the moment is Substack, which is doing what I originally valued in Facebook and Twitter, which was linking me to content that I want to read and be more informed on.
That was the appeal of Twitter to me at the start too, especially around football.
Yeah, yeah. So you've got all these really creative, interesting voices sharing their newsletters, and you can there's kind of 2 ways of looking at Substack. One is they're called notes, and so this is people you follow, but also others that they think you're interested in. So this is some of the algorithmic stuff coming even into Substack, which is a bit sad, but it pushes you into things that you're interested in. But I have found so far that most of that stuff is kind of like what I remember the original Facebook and Twitter to be, is that it's stuff that I'm also actually interested in. So they're other people's posts, other people's insights that are aligned with the things I already follow. But the other way of looking at it is just to look at the people you've subscribed to, and you just see their blogs and newsletters. And that's the most helpful, because these are people I've intentionally sought out, I've intentionally curated. And I want to know the next thing that Katja Hoyer says about German politics or history or culture. And so I look at that feed, and there's Katja Hoyer's latest post. And so I can read about naked Germans. But that's stuff that I'm intentionally seeking out, as in I want to know about the culture and history and politics of Germany. And so her post is one that I can look at and subscribe to, and I can see that going. And so I think at this stage, Substack's probably on the edge. I think it's a little bit more additive than it is extractive. However, like anything, there is far more on there than I could possibly consume. And so
that's where I'm really starting to struggle.
Yeah.
Nowadays.
So there are even, I mean, my inbox gets clogged up now with there are so many voices, and so I have to do a poll now. People unsubscribe to because there's just too many. And it is becoming extractive, as in it is using up my time that I could otherwise use for other things. And then probably one more thing on this is I listened to a really interesting podcast with Ryan Holiday, who we mentioned before as well, Stoic philosopher. And he had a conversation with a friend recently. I can't remember the friend's name. I'd have to look it up, sorry. But that talking about the value of long form podcasts. And they actually questioned how, and they've talked about, there's been this narrative in the last sort of 5 years that long form podcasts are better than quick spurt TikTok reels and those kinds of things. And I think that's still true. They said, however, one of the things it actually provides for us is it just because someone talks for 3 hours with Joe Rogan doesn't mean that actually what was there was of intentional substance, actual worthwhile. So it feels like it's weightier and more meaningful than a TikTok or a reel, which is probably true. But you can also just have people like us now blabbering on for an hour and a bit and get to the end and go, I don't know what I got out of that.
Yeah.
And so interestingly, again, kind of in this hour and a half conversation, part of it was about, probably listen to less podcasts and go and read more books or audio books. And so that's another thing that I'm thinking of at the moment is I've gone through and sort of unsubscribed from a few podcasts and tried to get line up a few more audio books. And the argument is that to get a book out is actually a much harder process. Therefore, the ideas are likely to be much more refined and it's even slower. And so if we go back to, I think it was Cal Newport again, who talked about fast food and the equivalent of fast content.
Yeah.
And so it's really hard to over-consume natural foods. You kind of can't overeat on carrots and celery and fruit because the content of them is so natural. You kind of get full before you start seeing any health.
Unless it's Steve Jobs who did the carrot-only diet and started to turn orange, apparently.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's not healthy.
But again, that's not an ideal scenario.
No, we did that to my son really early on too. He really liked the little pouch foods that were, sweet potato and pumpkin and carrot because they're really sweet. So we sort of talked to him and said, he's been eating a lot of carrot and sweet potato. I'm like, yeah, why? Oh, he's a bit orange. Whoops, sorry.
You put a spray tan on.
Yeah. So when Cal Newport was talking about the equivalent of natural food versus fast food and highly processed food, books are kind of in that early category of you can kind of, it's hard to overconsume on books because there's so much of it to get through. Podcasts are kind of in the middle. And TikTok is right at the highly processed, really unhealthy for you kind of thing. And so, that's something I'm kind of considering as well, just kind of working out the balance of all of those things.
Yeah, it's something I've been thinking about too, because I feel like sometimes I'm spread too thin with all the things that I want to watch and consume. I'm like, that'll be really interesting. That'll be really interesting. That'll be really interesting. And you've got 4 tabs open.
And we talked last week about not having to be on top of the latest controversy.
Yeah.
And so the thing about books is the attention economy of, this week we all care about Sydney Sweeney. And then, this week we all care about this topic. By the time a book comes out, those things have well and truly passed. So you actually only get the things that are worth lasting. Because it takes so long to get over. So I think it also helps cure that addiction to whatever the latest controversy is, because most controversies have a very short shelf life and therefore show that they're not all that important.
And I've found, and just through particular circumstances, that I think it was more, so I like to listen certain times at work to podcasts, but I try not to wear my AirPods all day.
Right.
So usually I'm listening to podcasts on YouTube, but they're hidden. It's like I minimize the screen. I can just hit play and pause on the keyboard.
Yep.
But at some point I've realized that I've opened too many tabs and I'm jumping between the different podcasts and stuff.
Interesting.
So just even that is, and I think, as you're saying, in the attention economy, your attention is spread thinner.
Mm.
And I've been thinking a lot more about, and kind of down the line of what Cal Newport talks about, of deep work and focus, and what am I actually doing that feels contributive, I think, to maybe not society, but like exactly what I'm doing. I think I have more of a desire to sit down and work on something for 2 hours, and then have a break. I've read a book once that talks about that, and in particular the Anders Ericsson study about violinists, where it compares the violinists that practiced 8 hours a day non-stop compared to the violinists that practiced 2 hours with a small break and then 2 hours again, but those practices were really intense.
Oh, right.
And they were far better. The idea is that they were far better than the ones that didn't practice enough, obviously, and then also the ones that practice too much, because and uses the argument, as humans, we are designed to work intensely, very focused, without much interruption for approximately 1.5 to 2 hours, and then have a break, and then do it again. And this is the argument, for example, like you've listened to Ryan Holiday and some other writers talk about, I need 2 to 4 hours of focused work, and I know I've done a good job for the entire day. And it's funny how we spread. I've just been thinking about this, of how the general idea is that you have an 8-hour workday and you're working those 8 hours. That's not true.
No.
Unless the culture is set up to do what I'm talking about in terms of the Ericsson study.
Yeah.
And to understand that. And I've talked about a company before, Basecamp. They try and get very close to that and say, we don't want to interrupt you at all. We want you to focus on work, and then we have a set time where we come together and talk about something. But then that's all we do. We don't, because I think they've found is that you are a much happier, feel more sustainable when you can work in that way rather than constantly interrupted.
Yeah.
But even your attention is not spread as thinly as well.